Earlier, when I was talking to Nadhim Zahawi, I began by asking him why we should have any confidence that Boris Johnson would clean up sleaze in Parliament when only a fortnight ago he tried to get his colleague Owen Patterson off his punishment for breaching those lobbying rules.
Well, I would say a couple of things on that. One, the Owen Patterson report, and of course conflating that with effectively introducing a right of appeal into the system was a mistake, and I take collective responsibility for that. And I think it's important to your viewers to understand that when you reflect on something and think you've made an error, we very quickly came back. Within 24 hours, this Prime Minister came back or sent the Leader of the House back to the House to say, actually, we made a mistake, we should separate those two things. That's what we did. And now we've gone further because actually, reflecting on the Standards Committee report and looking at the sort of clause 1 and 10, where we think actually we can go much further to make sure that the public confidence is maintained. One, that an MP has a contract with his constituent, that they have to always come first. I remember, I think it was Roy Jenkin, you might remember this, Robert, who used to write in his books, I thank my constituents for allowing me to be an author. We have a contract with our constituents, and it's important, whatever you do outside of this place, and I'm in favour of enriching this place with different experiences, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, an architect, an engineer, in my case, or other professions, we should have a place that's rich in experience outside of politics.
Obviously, I want to come back to...
I know, the other, just very briefly, the other clause, clause 10, which is about making sure that no outside job you take it is essentially one given to you because you have become a Member of Parliament.
I mean, look, you just pointed out that the proposals you're recommending were in the Standards Committee report of 2018. So why on earth has it taken you 3 blooming years to work out the system wasn't fit for purpose?
Well, we've had Brexit to deal with, and then we've had a global pandemic, Robert. There's been two major
2018,
challenges.
Actually, hang on. 2018 was 3 years ago, Nadhim.
Yes.
The reason you're doing it now is because you're cutting and running, because you just faced a tidal wave of criticism because of the Prime Minister's initial misjudgment over the Patterson report.
Well, look, I just said, I take collective responsibility for conflating a report by the Standards Committee on a particular behaviour of a Member of Parliament and actually getting the system to have a right of appeal and, of course, to make it carry the confidence of the nation.
I mean, look, you heard the Speaker today talking about how damaging it is for the UK, this loss of confidence in our desperately important House of Commons. And we are at a pretty low ebb where the Prime Minister has to stand up and say to the world, we're not corrupt. I mean, it's a farce. But worse than that, it's a tragedy.
It is desperately important. And, I and my family have fled a country where there was no democracy from a dictator. And I still think this is the mother of parliaments, the best parliament on earth, which is why it's so important that tonight we vote and make sure that we deliver and regain the confidence of the nation by demonstrating that actually we need to be intelligent about how we do this. We need to make sure that contract between members of Parliament and their constituent remains absolutely front and centre of everything we do.
Confidence of the nation, very important, but the Prime Minister is losing the confidence of his MPs. I mean, I talk to them. They are fed up with this mess. Many of them, if they are going to vote with the government tonight, do it with a great sense of reluctance. He's been really damaged, hasn't he?
Well, I think it was important for the Prime Minister to reflect within 24 hours and send the Leader of the House back to the House, and we all collectively stood up. I did the media round the next morning and actually said, look, I think we made a mistake to conflate those two things. The Prime Minister has said that many times over. If you look at the vote tonight, the parliamentary party actually came together and voted overwhelmingly to go, in fact, probably further than Labour wanted to go, to make sure we get this right. And now it's up to the House, Parliament, the Standards Committee, to look at this in detail, and I hope deliver the right thing, which is to make sure that MPs always put their constituents front and centre, and that, of course, that you know, the outside jobs or whatever profession you happen to be in is because you have a reason to have that, not because you're a member of Parliament.
But can I just have one last sort of go at this from a slightly different angle? There are lots of your MPs who, you know, enjoy their outside work, and quite a lot of that's now going to be banned. They're furious with you.
Well, let's get one thing in perspective. The MPs who are, whether they are engineers or architects or doctors or lawyers or nurses or teachers, I think enrich this Parliament.
But why is working for the private sector? Why is work? Because it's almost impossible now to think about any job working for a private sector company that will be allowed. Because broadly, if you're a business, what you want is parliamentary advice, and that's going to be banned. So what's so wrong with working for the private sector?
No, that's the right thing. Because actually, you shouldn't be given a job just because you've become a member of Parliament. You should be, if you have a profession, if you have a contribution to make to the economy, you could be a wealth creator, an entrepreneur. You could be a brilliant programmer.
But you'll have to do all that before you join Parliament now, under the new rules. Look, I've got to get. I want to talk about. I want to talk about schools. I want to talk about schools. So I'm just going to go to Anushka for a little bit of data.
Yeah, I just want to show you some data from the Institute for Fiscal Studies on the change in spending in education over the years, comparing that to health. So this is an increase or decrease in spending. 2010, austerity, health spending was protected and rose. Education spending started to fall all the way down to 2020, when it was a 10% cut in total. Now, during the pandemic, of course, health spending surged, and it is going to continue to rise until it is 42% up in real terms on 2010. There is also a turnaround in education, which was also very badly hit by the pandemic, but it's a much more modest increase, just crossing that 2010 line and flattening out at 3%. Robert.
So, Nadhim, on that, since the election of a Conservative Prime Minister in 2010, health has consistently been given a higher priority than schools. Why?
Well, look, the settlement I have just managed to negotiate with the Treasury is the second high settlement after health in cash terms.
But why second? Why not joint first?
We've got the equivalent of £1,500 per pupil by 2024. Which is, I think, a massive uplift in the core budget of schools. We've got £5 billion in recovery money. I put out a video tonight, which I hope you will look at and retweet, of what that tuition is doing for those kids who have never had. It's been the remit, the privilege of wealthy families, or middle-class families, to have that tuition. We're delivering that to all
But you know the damage that COVID... Obviously, COVID has done terrible damage to the health service. It's done terrible damage to schools as well. And particularly poorer kids. Now, I know more money is going in, but so many people say it's not enough.
Well, all I can say to you is you look at what we're doing on tutoring, the national tutoring work we're doing. We look at what we're doing for 16 to 19-year-olds, an extra hour a week. We got 800 million in the budget for that. And, of course, secondary and primary school got another billion. So the total package is 5 billion now. I think it's important that we don't just look at what we're spending. We look at how we're spending it and what the outputs are. And we're seeing really good results, certainly in primary already, from the national tutoring initiative that we have delivered.
Now, I do want to move on. I want to move on. One other important issue that we've all been, well, a number of other issues, but one issue we've been focusing on quite a lot in the last few days. Azim Rafiq, former Yorkshire cricketer, he doesn't want his child to play cricket because he says it's institutionally racist. That's so shocking, isn't it?
It is shocking, and you know, any one from my background or his background who, you know, when I was growing up, it's gone away, and thank goodness for that. But certainly at school, it was quite, you know, regular to be called a Paki, to be called names. You know, go back, and I have to sort of politely explain. Look, you know, I'm from a place called Kurdistan in Iraq, and we fled Saddam Hussein. It's painful. Really painful, that type of racism.
And when you hear cricketers saying it's banter, what do you feel?
I think it's not banter, it is disgusting. And actually, real leadership is about facing up to those hard truths and doing something about it and dealing with it in any walk of life, in politics, in sport, in business, in media, everywhere. We must stamp this out. It is terrible for those individuals at the receiving end of that.
And just to be clear, if the cricket authorities don't stamp it out, from what you're saying, you think the government should step in?
Well, I think the cricket authorities will rise to the challenge. I think it's important that those voices, those leaders, are beginning to make sure that this is actually, dealt with root and branch. And I think we will be in a much happier place, much better place in all our sports, whether it's cricket or football or elsewhere. We have to stamp this out. We should be intolerant of that level of racism and everyday abuse of people just because they happen to be slightly different from us.
Nadhim Zahawi, as always, good to see you.
Good to see you.